All right, let's go through the 5 best and 5 worst or just slightly frustrating things that I've found with the Xiaomi Mi 9 after about a week of usage. There are certain areas where Xiaomi just has to cut back or give us just not quite as good of an experience because they have to give us that 3,000 RMB price tag. So let's go through these 5 or 10 things that I've found out over the time of using this phone. All right, the first thing I definitely want to talk about is the screen and the fingerprint sensor. Now, this is an area where I think Xiaomi have actually spent the money and given us something that is basically flagship spec. This fingerprint sensor is incredible. The success rate I've had is basically 100%. It is so quick and so accurate. It just works all the time. You don't even have to turn the screen on. You don't have to tap the screen. When the screen is dark, there's just a tiny illumination at the bottom here. All you have to do is press down there and it just works every single time. It just works. It's quick, it's easy, it's convenient. It is, for me, in my opinion, the absolute best way to unlock your phone. And Xiaomi have certainly given us one of a really top grade here. It just works every single time. Also, a really good feature that I found just by accident really is just when you hold the fingerprint sensor down, if you just keep holding it, it comes up with basically shortcut options. So you have a shortcut menu here of 5 different options. Now in China, they give you WeChat and Alipay, which are payment apps. So they're things that everyone uses every day. You just hold down like that and then you can like scan in, maybe you want to scan to pay somebody and it just goes straight into the app. It's a really convenient feature. You can remap that as well. If you scroll left here, shortcuts are here and you can just go to edit them and you can edit into pretty much anything you want to put in there. Coming on to the screen in general as well, I can't say anything bad about this screen. It's an AMOLED screen. Now it's a full HD screen. It's not Quad HD, but I think that there's absolutely no way you could tell the difference between this and a Quad HD. If you want Quad HD, then you're gonna have to give up so many other things, including a chunk of battery life. This screen is absolutely amazing. I can't say anything bad about the Xiaomi 9 screen. It's really bright, it's really sharp, the colors are really great, and it's an AMOLED, so you get those dark blacks. Now, I use dark mode in most of the apps. It doesn't work in everything, but a lot of the Xiaomi apps it will work in. You can just go here and turn it off or on depending on your preference. It tells you a few things and there you go. It's just a dark mode, which I absolutely love. You're basically using none of the screen to power the phone. When you come out, obviously the dark mode isn't there, but a lot of the Xiaomi apps, you can see the phone and a lot of the messaging apps, things like that, will all be in dark mode. So you will be using virtually none of the screen to actually make it bright. Now that's definitely going to help with battery life, and it has. The battery life has been great. You can just see that it just blacks out the whole screen. Now I know dark modes exist, but it's just such a good feature to have on the phone. So in terms of the fingerprint scanner and the AMOLED screen, got nothing bad to say. One thing that is interesting, and I guess if you were really nitpicking, you might have a problem with it, which is the way that Xiaomi have actually changed the shape of the notch at the top of the screen. Now, the CEO from Xiaomi, in his speech when they're releasing the phone, said that because of customer feedback in China, they needed to change the shape of the notch. People in China didn't like the shape of the notch. If you look very, very closely, originally the shape of the notch was basically a U. Exactly the same type of notch that you would find in their other phones like the Redmi Note 7. The more modern Xiaomi phones went for that U notch, and apparently the CEO said they got such bad feedback from it that they've had to change the shape of the notch. You can see that they've blacked out parts either side of the notch to make it a water drop instead of a U drop notch. So it actually looks a slightly different black color. I guess you will get used to it, but when you look at it, you can tell that they've just changed the shape of the notch through a software update. So either side of the notch, they've blacked out pixels, and the black color isn't exactly the same. if you're someone who's really particular about these sorts of things, it may get to you a little bit. For me, it's not a big problem. I really like the shape of a notch. I prefer this type of notch rather than the U shape. I think Xiaomi have to differentiate this phone from the Redmi, the cheaper lines. So I think it looks a little bit more elegant. Other than that, we'll come to the design of the phone, which is the second point. Somewhere where I think Xiaomi have given us great design, and then other parts where Xiaomi have obviously not spent the money and given us a slightly cheaper device, obviously to cut down on costs. Firstly, the bezels. I absolutely love the design on the front of this phone. The bezels are so small. I've had lots of people ask me, what are the bezels like compared to the iPhone? They want to know, what are the bezels like? Maybe you can see there you go, side by side. A lot of people have asked for it. The bezels, I would say, are smaller on the sides on the Xiaomi 9, and the bottom bezel, you can just see it side by side there. Maybe it's slightly bigger on the Xiaomi 9 than the iPhone on the bottom. One thing that I really like about the iPhone is that the bezels are perfectly symmetrical all the way around, apart from obviously that huge great thing in the top. But the bottom and the side bezels are exactly the same size, and they look really symmetrical, which I like. With the Xiaomi 9, the top and bottom bezels just look a little bit bigger because the side bezels are actually way smaller in comparison to those. They're not symmetrical. So I sort of like the look better on here, but you can just see, everyone's asked for it, the bezels across them, there's not really much difference. It maybe looks bigger on the Xiaomi 9 because the bezels on the side are smaller. But I really love that design on the front. The bezels are so small. Some areas where it's just not as good as I would like is the back. Now, I love this color. Now, I just went on about this color in the unboxing. I just absolutely love it. However, this on the back here is glass. They say it's Gorilla Glass. Of course, it has to be to allow the wireless charging, but it just doesn't feel as premium, as good as more expensive phones. It's uncanny how Xiaomi have been able to use a more expensive, heavier material and make it feel like a cheaper, inexpensive plastic material. It is glass, but I guess it's thinner or lighter or cheaper in some way. It just doesn't feel as premium as more premium expensive phones. And also with the buttons, you got the power button, the volume rocker, and the smart assistant here. The buttons, the way that they click, it doesn't feel extremely premium. These are the small things that Xiaomi don't spend the money on to give us this cheaper device. Okay, so the third thing I love here, and I'm just gonna open up a game for you guys to see, is gaming on this device. It goes right up to the sides. That notch, you can't even see it. It doesn't get in the way at all. I really don't like when game makers or phones kill the notch and kill this whole left-hand side. It just leaves a lot of the screen unavailable for playing the game. But you can see here, it just takes up the whole screen, the notch coming in there. It's actually right where the punch or the fire button is. All right, so they give with one hand and take with another again, because when you're playing games, it's really easy to block this speaker at the bottom. You can just see the speakers there at the bottom. It's a mono speaker. It comes out of this one here. This one is just for show. There's nothing coming out there. And the way that I hold the phone when I'm playing PUBG, I cover this speaker. And because there's nothing coming out of the top of the phone, there's nothing coming out of this speaker grill on the left, you essentially cover up the phone's audio. So it's a slightly annoying feature. There's nowhere else for the sound to come out. Having said that, I can get over that, and actually because of this Snapdragon 855 and this amazing AMOLED screen, this is one of the best game experiences I've had. Take away the audio, it's really great to play with a really high quality graphics, and there's absolutely zero lag on this phone. Alright, so if you're a gamer, just keep that in mind. So again, a great experience on the screen, but they just don't give you the full premium experience because you just get that speaker that just isn't very great. However, I would say if you are a gamer, again, I think this is number 4 now, the battery is amazing on this thing. The battery in terms of milliamp hours isn't the biggest for sure, but the way this phone works and the way the Snapdragon works with the AMOLED screen, I've been using this for about a week now, putting it through its paces, using this literally non-stop, taking videos, taking photos, using lots of apps, just checking everything, and honestly this thing just goes for the whole day. You are not going to run out of battery using this thing unless you just play games consistently for about 5 hours. Now again, the thing that Xiaomi takes away is I've had some problems with charging the phone wirelessly. Now this is just a Qi standard wireless charger, and most of the time it's okay, but it can just slip up if you don't put it on there properly, and it might be doing it now. It's actually not charging now. You can see it's sort of flicking on and off. Now I don't know if other people have had this problem or if it's just me, but this is definitely a problem with the wireless charging. It might be my charger, it might be that the wireless coil inside the phone is somehow not just put on there properly or enough. You can see it's just slightly slow at recognizing or keeping the charge after it's on the charger. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it isn't. It's just flicking through again. It might be my wireless charger, because actually this camera unit on the back here just rests on the wireless charger. I don't know if it's a problem just with my unit, but it's definitely something that I would say Xiaomi need to fix. So again, it's a feature that is something that we recognize with flagships, but just doesn't quite work as well as those flagships. If you've seen this problem, get in touch with me, maybe send me a comment as well to see if it's a problem on more devices than just my one. Alright, so the 5th one, the best feature about this phone is definitely that camera on the back. Triple camera setup, ultra wide, telephoto, 48 megapixel main camera. This is a massive step forward for Xiaomi. This camera is pretty much better than anything I've seen on a Xiaomi device. It is incredible, some of the shots that you get from this, having the super wide, having a telephoto. One thing I would say that just I've found slightly frustrating, again, great feature with some slight drawbacks, is the camera app itself is kind of frustrating. So basically the ultra wide camera is down here and it works really well, but the thing is that there's a completely separate button for it than the other zoom options. You get zoom 1 and 2 in the middle, and then you have to press this one to zoom out. It's not a deal breaker, it's just slightly strange as to why they didn't put it in the same sort of setup as the 1 and 2 times zoom. Another thing that really frustrates me about the phone is that the 48 megapixel mode is something that you turn on. It's not on automatically. You have to choose it from the settings. Now I bought a phone with a 48 megapixel camera that by default doesn't take 48 megapixel stills, and I want it to. Every single time you open the camera app, you have to choose 48 megapixel mode specifically. You can't save it to just be in 48 megapixel mode all the time. And it's actually quite frustrating. You can just go into settings there and you can change it, but it's not on all the time. Again, if you want to use the AI technology, which Xiaomi say is really good, they recognize faces and different things, you can use the AI, but you can't use that with 48 megapixel mode. 48 megapixel mode seems like an add-on that you use as maybe a special feature and not something they give you as standard when taking photos. I find it slightly frustrating that to use 48 megapixel mode, it's a special feature considering it has a Snapdragon 855 and you would expect it to just be able to take those photos no problem. All in all, I would say the camera has really surprised me. It's really, really great. The stabilization is also really good, but the camera app and some of the decisions they made with the settings just makes me a little bit unhappy. It's definitely a phone that goes all out on those really important basic features that you really want from the phone, but it just pulls back on some of those peripheral features that make the really premium phones stand out. But all in all, great phone, and I really like the Xiaomi Mi 9.